Hey there everyone, this is the last lesson for week one. I hope week one's been going well for you. If you've decided to smash all these lessons in one day, congratulations. Make sure you apply on the following days. However, if you've spaced out, just as well. Because today we're going to be looking at modes of thinking. So by the end of this lesson, you will know the difference between focused and diffused modes of thinking. If you've never heard of them, you'll know them in and out by the end of this lesson. And more importantly, when to use them. So the learning points. We'll be looking straight away at the focus mode. Next, we'll then look at the mindset effect. Then to the diffuse mode, just before we do a mental challenge. So don't think it's just me talking, you've got to do a little something on this lesson. When solving a problem, the focus mode work is required beforehand. And then when you switch to the diffuse mode, it can feel almost like an aha moment. I'm sure we can all relate to this, where we've sat down at a table and we said to ourselves, we're not going to move until we solve this problem. And we struggle for minutes, hours. And then as soon as we get up and maybe go to the kitchen to make a cup of tea, it comes to us and it seems so obvious. And then we rush back and we fill in the answer, or we solve the problem. I'm going to explain the process of how and why this happens. Before we do that, what is focus mode? Well, it involves a direct approach. So this is where you're sitting down at the desk, dedicating your time and your energy to a specific problem, using rational, sequential, and analytical approaches. You can think of this as kind of a narrow and specific way at looking at a problem. So in this image, all you can see clearly is the yellow taxi. Everything else around it is quite blurry, but you can clearly identify the yellow taxi. And this is usually what it's like when solving a problem. We can see one way and we can only focus on that one way that we can see. Examples of focus mode work: giving a public talk, because you're focusing purely on your script and the message you're trying to deliver and nothing else. Next, we have our times tables, at least those that we know. This is where it's similar to procedural memory, where we have to retrieve instructional step-by-step procedures that we know to solve the problem. And of course, solving things like a Rubik's Cube. We understand it's limited in terms of its ability to solve the problem, so we follow, once again, a step-by-step procedure to complete the challenge. However, there's a little thing called the mindset effect. What we find is when we get stuck and challenged by a problem, we often can't look away and we can only see the solution that we found originally. It's very hard for us to see another way, and it acts as a barrier for us to learn a new, more effective way of solving it. And this is where diffuse mode comes into play. It's what happens when we relax and your tension and just let your mind wander. As I mentioned before, when you leave that table to make that cup of tea, that's when that aha moment comes about. It's that moment where you allow yourself to look at the bigger picture. So in this image, you no longer just see the yellow taxi clearly. You can now see the cars around it, the neighboring streets, the atmosphere, the people on the road. Understanding that, taking this diffuse step back, you can see a wider point of view. You can actually look at other techniques and other solutions that could potentially solve the problem. However, of course, this is quite vague and your mind does wander. And this is why it's important that we don't start in the diffused mindset where we're too relaxed. We need that upfront hard grit of focus mode to identify where the problem is. And then when we're stuck, we take a step back and we can see it with a new pair of eyes. Examples of getting into diffuse mode: going for a walk. What's great about going for a walk is you're taken out of the environment where you initially saw the problem, and you now play the problem over in your head in this new environment, and you see and you feel different things than you did when you were in the initial setting, which can be quite effective for your brain to look at it from a different point of view. Next, hopefully you're not taking a shower in this environment, but taking a shower. The actual water on your skin distracts your brain ever so slightly that it allows the brain to kind of switch off and focus onto the water. So your subconscious can then work on the problem at hand. Maybe that was earlier on in the day, maybe it was an argument, but often when we have our showers, this is where we come up with our best ideas. And that's because we slip into a diffuse mode of thinking. And finally, as many teachers and parents tell us, you shouldn't multitask or task switch. Going to another task when stuck can be quite useful, because whilst you're working on the other task, the task that you were initially stuck at is playing over in your mind, and just like the shower, your main prefrontal cortex, the part that is responsible for taking in stimulus and problem solving, is focused and caught up with the new task, allowing your subconscious to still be focusing on the initial problem. So try to think about taking a walk, a shower, or just simply switching tasks and coming back to the initial problem. Now try it yourself. You're going to get yourself into a diffuse mode of thinking, but it's not going to be easy. I want you to pause this video in just a second. But what I want you to do is I want you to take this triangle and make it point down, but only moving 3 of the circles. It won't be easy, but you'll be surprised that many children get it very quickly. So I'm going to give you the moment to pause this video. Okay, how did you get on? Did it take you 10 minutes, 20, or 1? For me, it took me quite a little while. And what you'll find is people with actual high IQ take longer because they're taught to look at a problem in certain ways, in rigid ways. And once you think you've found a solution and it's not the answer, you're like, damn it. And when you try and step back and look at it from a different point of view, it's very hard to not look at the way you initially tried to solve it, right? Similar to the mindset effect. Now you want to know the answer. Here's the answer. Simply taking the bottom 2, placing them at top, so you've got a row of 4. You then have a row of 3, a row of 2, and then you can take the top one and put it at the bottom. Now there's other ways you can do this. But what I want you to learn is understanding to have fun, have a play with it. What you found probably moving circles that you knew weren't going to work helped your brain to just pull it apart and see it from a different point of view. And once you did figure it out or now seen it, you're now in a diffuse mode where you're looking at problems in a lot more relaxed, natural way. And this is where learning comes easy. So to recap, we've covered focus mode and understanding its importance before we actually approach a task. Understanding that the mindset effect is real and it will happen to you, but knowing to get yourself into the diffuse state, and we'll be using more mental challenges to get you into the diffuse state so you can jump in and jump out when needed. And the final fun fact for this week, your brain is 73% water. It's incredible. However, it takes only 2% dehydration to affect your attention, memory, and other cognitive skills. So if there's one thing you remember, and you do after week 1, make sure you drink more water. I've been John Harry. Keep reading fast and remembering more, and I'll see you next week.